I didn't catch them in a motel. I caught them in my kitchen. The house was quiet the way empty houses hum, refrigerator fan, clock tick, a late August cicada outside the screen. I was sorting receipts at the breakfast bar because Fridays were budget night, and I liked the ritual. It kept my hands busy and my brain honest. I'd set my iced tea on a cork coaster Dana hates because it leaves little rings on the granite. That's when her tablet, our old family tablet nobody uses anymore, lit up from the charging stand. Can't stop thinking about the last time. No name. Just a preview line and a grey circle where a face should be. The message banner slid up, then away, like a shy fish. I stared at the black glass, suddenly aware of the way the air felt too warm, too heavy. My first thought wasn't affair. My first thought was who texts like that? The second thought landed harder, why is her tablet still logged in? Then something tiny changed everything. The banner returned. Another line. Thursday? Same lot. I'll park by the maples. The words were clean, like they'd been written with a ruler. My hands didn't shake, which surprised me. I've always had catcher's hands, calm, even when the pitch is wild. I tapped the banner and the app opened to a thread. There weren't months of messages, just a tight run across a few weeks. That almost made it worse. It looked new. It looked deliberate. No names, but context piles up fast. Mentions of clinic shift, a brown jacket, a truck with the dented tail. A photo I didn't want to see. Not explicit, just a silhouette of two people close together reflected in a window, the kind of shot you take when you're not brave enough to take a real one. The timestamp read 9:42 p.m. The day we were supposed to be on our porch, watching the neighborhood strung with citronella flames. I stood there listening to the fridge. It hummed like it knew. I backed out of the app and took a slow lap through the house, touching the backs of chairs and the door trim like a blind man making a map. Our wedding photo is still on the hallway wall. The one where Dana's hair was pinned with little pearls she found at a thrift store. She looked at me like she believed in weekends, in steady. I used to be proud I could hand anyone that photo and say, we built 30 years on that look. I went back to the tablet and looked again. The messages were careful, truncated, like two people planning a surprise party for the wrong person. There were whispers typed out as sh and a joke about paperwork making us both old. There was a small, blurry image of a dashboard with a municipal parking tag. That's when my bones caught up, a utilities office. We'd just hosted a city meeting at the clinic about water main repairs. I had grilled chicken skews on the back deck for Dana and a few of the staff after. One of the guys, quiet, sun-brown, utility logo on his jacket, had raved about the marinade and asked for the recipe. I set the tablet down like it might bite. I didn't rage. I did what men like me do. I opened a drawer, took out a notepad, and started a list. Maples lot, where? Thursdays, her rota says late shift on 2 and 4. Brown jacket, who? Utilities? Can't stop thinking about the last time when? Do I move now or wait? I put the tablet into airplane mode so nothing would disappear if the phone synced. Then I did the budget, because part of me wanted one more hour where numbers meant what they meant. Groceries, utilities, college help for our son, auto pay. The tiny domestic parade marched across the page like it had any power against what I'd just seen. Curiosity loop, if you're wondering why I didn't confront her right then, I wondered too. The truth is simple, confronting without context is how people end up arguing about shadows. I wanted a wall of daylight. Dana came in late, hair up, clinic badge dangling, the smell of sanitizer riding her sweater. She kissed my cheek, light, distracted. Long night, she said, setting a metal water bottle down a little too carefully. Mrs. Hargrove forgot her inhaler. Budget night, I said, tapping the ledger. It sounded normal coming out of my mouth. I hated that. She showered. I heard the water drum the tile and imagined the words "same lot" steaming up the mirror. When she came back to the kitchen, her face had that soft aftershower looseness I'd loved since I was 27 and clueless. She picked up the tablet, glanced at the dark screen, then at me. "Do we still need this old thing?" she asked. "I use it for recipes," I lied, not blinking. She slid it into the drawer by the oven, the one with the aprons and takeout menus, and smiled like she was tired and grateful to be home. My heart did that stupid loyal thing where it tries to put out a house fire with a glass of water. That night I didn't sleep so much as hover. The ceiling fan ticked on an untrue blade. Around 2 a.m., a car rolled past and a stray sliver of headlight cut across the wall, catching the corner of our wedding photo. I watched the brightness slide over our young faces and vanish. It felt like a preview of a thing disappearing. In the morning, I made coffee and eggs like I always do. I packed her lunch. I stuck a post-it on the inside of her bag that said, "Love you." I wanted to see whether she'd flinch. She didn't. She kissed my cheek again, same light press, and said, "You're the best, Ellison," using my last name the way she does when she's playful. Then she was gone, tail lights winking red under the maples we planted when the kids were small enough to hang from the lower limbs. The tablet stayed in the drawer. I took it out, powered it, and photographed everything on my phone screen to a cloud drive I keep for ballgame videos and tax docs. Then I did a thing I never thought I'd do. I opened her calendar, scanned for Thursdays, and compared them against my notepad. Clinic late shifts lined up with 3 of the message dates. The 4th had community advisory, water department, in a color I didn't recognize. My stomach turned a slow, methodical circle. By lunch I had a name. Kyle Mercer. I didn't get it from her messages, and I got it from the clinic staff Facebook equivalent they use for potlucks and shift swaps. A photo from the water meeting showed 6 people in safety vests and clinic polos. I remembered the quiet guy who liked the skews. The caption, posted by someone named Patrice, tagged Kyle, Field Tech, with a little thumbs up emoji. I called our son just to check in and asked 3 bland questions about his job, pretending my voice wasn't made of gravel. I texted our daughter a photo of the dog sleeping in a sunbeam. I told myself I was establishing normal. It felt like dressing a mannequin and calling it a husband. Curiosity loop payoff, partial that afternoon, I drove to the Maples lot. Harbor Glens Park isn't big, but it has a back corner where old shade trees hide 24 spaces people use for jogs, quiet lunches, and, apparently, messages that say, "last time." I sat in my truck with the window down and the smell of cut grass in the cab. I timed arrivals. I made note of a white work pickup with a dented rear panel. The driver took a call, laughed at something, then drove off toward the utilities building. I didn't follow him. I wasn't ready to be a movie character. I was a guy in a worn cap with a legal pad. At home, I laid out what I had the way I'd lay out tools before fixing a fence, timestamps, screenshots, calendar overlaps, and the photo of the work pickup. I wrote one more line at the bottom, "What do you want, Mark?" Not what does she want, not what will he do. Me. My line. My boundary. That question hung in the air while the afternoon slid toward evening. Around 5, Dana texted that she'd be a bit late, paperwork, and asked if I could start the rice. I stared at the message until the dots stopped pulsing. I set out 2 plates anyway. When she walked in at 6:40, she looked oddly bright, cheeks up, eyes too shiny. Paperwork, she said, dropping her bag, was a mess. She talked quickly about a supply order and a patient who brought muffins. I nodded in the right places. Then I said, "Light, practiced, the city's doing another advisory meeting at the community center on Saturday. We should go. I want to hear about the water main plan. Maybe I'll get that marinade recipe to the right person this time." The smallest twitch touched her left eye. She smoothed it with a smile. "Saturday?" I promised Patrice I'd help with the clinic booth at the farmer's market. Right, I said. Of course. We ate in the easy silence you earn over decades. She complimented the chicken. I said the rice was a little dry. Domestic choreography. Then, while she loaded the dishwasher, I put the tablet, her tablet, back on the stand and turned the screen to face the wall so the glow wouldn't betray what I'd already seen. After dishes, she went to fold laundry. I waited 30 seconds and followed with a basket of towels we didn't need folded. She hummed, off-key a little. I watched her clip a stray thread from a washcloth with the concentration of a surgeon. My chest hurt in the specific way of realizing you've been living beside a person and a performance at the same time. I said, let's take a drive. I want to show you something. Now? She asked, surprised. Now, I said, calm Catcher's voice. It'll take 10 minutes. We got in the truck. I didn't speak. She didn't either. I took the 2 turns that make up the distance between our house and the Maples lot. I pulled into a space facing the trees, left the engine idling, and let the fan push warm air across our faces. Mark, she said. A question more than a name. I pointed to the corner where white paint flaked off a dented panel. The utilities pickup sat there, empty now, quiet as a kept secret. Want to tell me, I asked, still calm, why I already know who parks there? Her hand tightened on her seatbelt. The cicadas were so loud it sounded like the trees were hissing. She swallowed, once, and looked at the floorboard like truth might be wedged under the rubber mat. I can explain, she said. I believed her. I believed she could explain for hours. I put the truck in park, turned off the engine, and faced her fully for the first time since the messages. No, I said. I need you to answer. She opened her mouth. I can explain, Dana said. No, I told her. Answer. She looked at the dashboard like it might offer a script. The cicadas wound up. A jogger passed behind the truck, shoes whispering on the gravel. It started after the advisory meeting, she said. We were short-staffed. He stayed late to help load tables. He was kind. We started texting about schedules. That's all. How long texting? I asked. Couple months, she said, too quickly. Maybe 3. It felt harmless. And this lot? Her mouth pressed thin. We talked here. After work sometimes. Just talked. She watched my face. Waiting to see if talk would buy her daylight. Did you meet anywhere else? I asked. Once by the old depot, she murmured. It was raining. We sat in his truck because I didn't want anyone to see us. I knew it looked wrong. My hands stayed steady on the wheel. Catcher's hands. What do you call it, Dana? Her eyes glassed, but she didn't cry. Dana has always rationed her tears like they were expensive. I made a stupid, selfish choice, she said. I was tired of feeling like the housekeeper of my own life. He made me feel noticed. I stared at the dented work truck. Kissing? She nodded once. Tiny. Yes. More. Silence. The kind that counts seconds like a metronome. I'm not going to paint pictures for you, Mark, she said finally. It crossed a line. It didn't happen 100 times. It happened a few. I am ashamed. A breeze shifted the leaves. Dry, papery. It smelled like the end of summer. I said, quietly, then here are the rules. You give me dates. You give me places. You give me the last time and the first time. You do not revise it later. You do not shrink it to make me easier to handle. You do that, or we call the clinic director tonight, and I forward your messages to their HR and his. Her hand flew to the seatbelt again, like she needed something to hold. "Please don't blow up my job." "My job is my marriage," I said. "And this is what honesty looks like when it's late." I drove home without another word. She sat forward, hands folded in her lap like a kid on the way to a principal's office. Inside, she went straight to the spare room and shut the door. I heard drawers open, paper rustle, the soft click of a pen. I gave her the space, 15 minutes, 30, then I did the thing I'd promised myself I would do before asking for more words. I audited our life. Curiosity loop: if you've never made a timeline on your kitchen table, I don't recommend it. It turns a home into a lab and a marriage into a specimen. But there's a kind of comfort in columns and timestamps when your head keeps slipping. I pulled the legal pad back out and wrote the months across the top: May, June, July, August. Down the left, I listed Thursdays. I pulled Dana's printed rota from the corkboard by the fridge. I marked late shift in blue. I marked advisory meetings in green. I added our budget nights in pencil. Then I reached for proof. Mileage: I keep oil change receipts with odometer readings that catch a brain again. Her blue hatchback's last service showed 52,090 miles on June 14th. 3 weeks later, she told me she drove straight home after a late clinic shift. The next morning, I cleaned her windshield and noticed the trip meter still sitting on 38.6 miles. The clinic is 8.4 miles away, round trip 16.8. Twice that distance is the park, the depot, and back. Receipts: our ledger works because we both toss receipts into a ceramic bowl with painted lemons. I dug through and found a crumpled afternoon slip for 2 iced teas and a muffin from a roadside cafe near the park. Timestamp 3:10 p.m. on a Thursday. She'd logged as paperwork late. She doesn't drink iced tea unless I make it. Calendar overlaps: on the clinic staff board that Patrice runs, I saw a post that book club moved to next week because the community room double booked with a pickleball group. Dana told me that same night she had girls' night. Then something tiny changed everything. Inside the old tablet's messaging app, there was a cache folder I hadn't opened. Not pictures they sent each other, thumbnails the app saves for previews. In there, a photo I hadn't seen. It was nothing explicit. 2 hands, close together on a center console. Hers, you can tell by the pale band where her ring normally sits when she's applying lotion and sets it aside. His, work rough, with a faint stripe of grime near the cuticle like he'd been checking a meter box that afternoon. Framed so tight it was almost abstract. Timestamp: 9:18 p.m. Thursday. Caption bubble cropping off reads: "Stay a few more." I backed up the cache to my cloud drive and a thumb drive I keep with our tax returns. I labeled the file not with their names but with dates and places. Not to be dramatic. To be disciplined. Dana came out of the spare room and put a single sheet of paper on the table with her palm flat on top of it, as if the page might leap up and wrong her. "First coffee after the meeting," she said, voice low. June 3rd. At that cafe near the park. Texting started the week before. The first, line crossing, was June 24th. The last time was last Thursday. She looked me in the eye, finally. There were 4 meetings where it went beyond talking. 2 here. 1 by the depot. 1 when he dropped off boxes at the clinic after hours. My stomach did a slow, methodical turn. After hours where? Supply closet area, she said, shame writing every syllable. It was foolish. I read her list. It matched my grid enough to hurt. The dates threaded the blue and green marks like beads. There were holes, though. Days she claimed only talking that lined up with my iced tea receipt. A girls' night that landed on the cancelled book club. I held the page up so it was between us like a small wall. Why a girls' night when it was this? I asked. because saying I wanted to go sit in a parked truck with a man from the utilities office would have sounded insane, she said. And because lying felt easier than the truth that I was starving for something that didn't feel like routine. Polarity flip. Part of me understood that starvation. 2 kids out of the house. A marriage built on logistics. We had started talking more about garbage pickup days than about us. I could feel sympathy and still hold a line. Those things can sit side by side even if they grind. I own the routine, I said. I let normal harden. But you aimed your hunger at a person and lied to feed it. That's not a diet, that's theft. She flinched like the word hit a nerve. Then she reached for me and stopped, her hand hovering over the table. I'm ending it, she said. I ended it. I sent him a message. On the same app one photographed an hour ago? I asked, and watched the color drain. I didn't know you saw, she whispered. Then practice, I said. Practice me seeing. Because there's more. There's always more. She closed her eyes. He asked me to come to the fall cookout, she said. Saturday. He's working the utilities booth. He said it would be harmless to say hello. And there it was, the thread that would run through the next days whether I pulled it or not. The Harbor Glen Fall Cookout has been our neighborhood's end-of-season ritual since the kids were little. Burgers, folding chairs, a raffle basket someone inevitably tries to hand me because I look like I win raffles. The idea of him in that space, by our park, grinning in a booth like a neighbor, lit something cold in me. I turned to my timeline and circled Saturday in red. Then I wrote one sentence on the bottom of the page, in block letters, and no private goodbyes. Dana read it and nodded. Okay. I'm not finished, I said. We are splitting rooms. You sleep in the spare until we have a plan. I'll decide whether to inform your clinic. I'll decide when we tell the kids. You do not delete a single thing. You will hand me your passcode if I ask. She nodded again. Okay. Tomorrow, I said, I'm checking the hatchback. Don't touch it. If there's anything in it, notes, wrappers, I don't care what, it becomes evidence of what we did or didn't mean to each other. She went very still. Not guilty still. Calculating still, like she was measuring what I would and wouldn't find. There's nothing, she said. We went to our corners of the house. The dog looked from me to her and finally chose the hallway rug like Switzerland. I lay in our bed and stared at the fan blade that ticks. The house exhaled in its old, familiar way. I felt none of it. Curiosity loop payoff, partial morning gave me a gift I didn't expect. When I opened her hatchback, the smell of lemon cleaner hit me like a slap. Dana doesn't detail her car. She lets dust and life collect in the door pockets until I get fed up and vacuum it on a Saturday. But the mats were brand new. The cup holders had been scrubbed. The trunk liner looked replaced. New mats don't prove a thing. But sometimes absence speaks. Under the passenger seat, I found a folded napkin with a faint coffee ring and 2 initials scribbled at the bottom, KM. They might have been anyone's. They weren't. I bagged the napkin in a zip top and added it to the manila folder I had started in my desk labeled House, September. Neutral name. Clear meaning. At lunch I drove by the depot to see it in daylight. Sun baked the parking lot into waves. A freight whistle drifted from somewhere past the trees. If you squinted, the place looked almost cinematic, old brick, peeling paint, the romance of American decay. The part of me that writes lists made a note, a romance lives where maintenance is missing. Then I made a second note, and not my job to fix theirs. I checked the cafe near the park and the table by the window where the cash photo might have been taken. A barista wiped circles into an already clean surface. 2 iced teas sweated in a pair on the counter, waiting for a pickup. Patterns repeat because people do. Back home, I sat with the list and added one more column, decisions. Not about them. About me. Tell kids now or later? Later, if at all, after I have the full picture. Inform clinic? Hold. Only if she stonewalls or I see risk to her workplace. Cookout? Attend. Watch. No blow-ups. Direct conversation with him if needed. Lawyer? Yes. Consult Monday. Pattern interrupt. I texted Dana 6 words. I want your passcode. No. Please. She sent it back without delay. I sat at the kitchen table, entered the numbers, and watched the home screen unfurl. Not to police. To confirm. Inside her messages, a thread looked thin. Logistics. Errands. The text equivalent of beige. With him, the words were clipped but warm. You okay? Thinking of your laugh. Same lot. Same time. Nothing flowery. A practical affair. That hurt more than poetry. Intent without decoration is still intent. I took 4 screenshots, sent them to my cloud drive, and closed the app. I didn't reply to him. I didn't warn him off. Not yet. I wasn't going to be the man who argues with a shadow behind a screen. I wanted sunlight. The door opened. Dana stood there with a tote bag and a folded lawn chair. Are we still going to the cookout? She asked, voice steady like she'd practiced it in the mirror. People will notice if we don't. We are going, I said. To pretend? She asked. To observe, I said. And to set a boundary where it belongs. In public, with daylight, and with our names. She swallowed. He'll be there, she said needlessly. I know. She set the chair down, hands trembling just enough to rattle the aluminum legs. Will you talk to him? I'll give him 1 sentence, I said. And then I'll give you my decision. Polarity flip again. I looked at her across our kitchen, this woman who knows how I take my coffee and where the good screwdriver hides. I remembered her at 26, knees tucked under her at a yard sale, laughing because we'd found the exact lamp we didn't know we wanted. I could hold that memory and still say the next line without blinking. If a single thing you told me tonight changes later, I said, we go from sorting to ending. No midpoint. No pause. She nodded. Understood. That night, we ate quietly. The dog picked at his kibble and finally flopped down with a sigh like an old man. I printed the cookout flyer and circled the utilities booth with a thick marker. Then I drew an arrow to a spot under the maples where the shade is deep around 3 in the afternoon. Because if people are going to show themselves, they often do it in the places they feel most at home. I set the flyer by the phone. I put the manila folder on top of it. I slid the thumb drive into my pocket. Saturday would be a bright day. And I would bring my calm hands. Saturday felt like any other community day, sun already bright, the air carrying that faint grill smoke promise. The kind of day you circle on a fridge calendar and forget why until you hear folding chairs clack in driveways across the block. I wasn't circling it for burgers. I brewed coffee strong enough to stand a spoon and sat at the table with 2 envelopes. Each had a draft letter inside, printed and unsigned. One addressed to the clinic director. One to the utilities operations office. Both calm. Both factual. Screenshots labeled by date. No adjectives. Just the beam of daylight I promised myself. I didn't seal them. Curiosity loop. Before the cookout, I needed to answer one question: am I exposing this because it's right, or because it hurts? A knock at the back door interrupted me. A neighbor, Mrs. Lowry, leaned in like she owned the breeze. Silver hair in a scarf, Pyrex dish balanced on her hip. You two bringing chairs? She asked. I've got deviled eggs and a story about Stan's new pressure washer I need to tell Dana. Chairs, yes, I said. Eggs, always dangerous. She laughed and peered past me toward the hallway. She sleeping in? Must be nice. Then she winked like we were co-conspirators in domestic bliss. 3 o'clock under the maples. Utilities set up early this year. Something about rubber ducks in the raffle? Wouldn't miss it, I said, because the truth was too big for a doorstep. When she left, I walked the halls like a man inspecting a rental before handing over the keys. The spare room smelled faintly of laundry sheets and pen ink. Dana's list still sat where she'd left it. In the doorway, she appeared with damp hair and an old clinic t-shirt, eyes tracking my face like weather. Are we going? She asked. We are, I said. We won't make a scene. We'll be civil. But we won't pretend. She nodded. Okay. I left her folding a tablecloth and took a drive. Not to stalk. To plan. The utilities office sits in a low brick building out by the service yard. On Saturdays the lobby is open for bill pay and those free magnet calendars everyone sticks to their fridge and forgets. I parked and walked in like a man who needed a magnet. The receptionist, a college kid with a name tag that read Leah, smiled politely and slid a stack toward me. You folks at the park today? I asked, casual. Yep, she said. Kyle and Ron drew the short straws. Booth Judy. She grinned. Kyle always gets roped in for extra hours. The word always panged like a tuning fork. As if summoned, he appeared down the hall, clipboard tucked under his arm, brown jacket even in the heat because men like him don't care about weather if there's a job. In person, he looked smaller than the tension he'd created. Sun lines at his eyes. Neat beard. He didn't see me. He spoke to Leah about extension cords, turned, and disappeared back toward the yard. I stared at the empty spot he left like it might explain something. Outside, I sat in my truck with the window cracked and called a number I'd taken from a friend's business card, Gabe, a church friend who talks like a counselor without calling himself one. He answered on the second ring. You got a minute, I said, for a not church, not fishing topic? For you, catcher, he said. Always. We met at a strip mall coffee shop where the air conditioning could freeze a pond. I told him the short version. Not the details. The arc. He listened without the frown people use when they want to show they're on your side. He just listened. How public, he asked finally, do you want this to be? Definition? I said. Do you want accountability or spectacle? He said. Both feel like justice when you're bleeding. One heals slower but holds. It's not about shame, I said. It's about the truth existing outside my head. He nodded. Then set the boundary where it belongs. Name it in daylight. Don't torch the neighborhood to warm your hands. We sat with that. The espresso machine hissed like a kettle on a short fuse. What about our kids? I asked. Do I tell them now? In my opinion, he said. No. Not until you've chosen a path. Otherwise you hand them an open wound and no bandage. I let my head rest against the cool window for a second. He put a hand on my shoulder, 1 second, just enough to say you're still here. When I got home, Dana was in the kitchen drafting a no-contact text. She held her phone like a reluctant witness. Type, there will be no personal contact between us from this moment forward. Do not approach me at work or socially. Any necessary communication will go through official channels, I said. She looked at me, then nodded. Her thumbs moved. She showed me the screen before she hit send. Minutes later, her phone buzzed. She flinched. I didn't. We read it together. Understood. Today's a public event. I won't do anything to make you uncomfortable. One day, I hope we can talk like adults. Public event, I said, repeating the phrase. What he calls community. What I call home. I'm sorry, Dana whispered. I know, I said. Sorry is for accidents. This was a plan. She didn't argue. Curiosity loop payoff, partial. My ledger gave me a different kind of clue. A bank alert popped up on my phone, a $200 cash withdrawal from the ATM near the park at 9:06 p.m. on a Thursday 2 weeks back. We don't use cash much. The note field I add for memory's sake was blank. No pizza, no donation jar, no farmer's market. What was this for? I asked, handing her my phone. She blinked, reading. I don't remember. Memory finds what convenience forgets, I said. Her face colored. The depot, she murmured. It was pouring. I didn't want a card trail. I told myself cash made it less real. She closed her eyes. You can say it. It was worse than lying. It was budgeting a lie. I won't say what you've already named, I said. I'll say this, if there's a single financial surprise left, it becomes an HR issue at the clinic and at utilities. I won't have our accounts underwriting your secret. No more, she said. I swear. We packed the lawn chairs and a cooler with soda because I didn't trust myself with beer. I slid the envelope drafts into the glove box. The thumb drive went into my pocket. Calm hands. Clear steps. We walked to the park early. The maples threw heavy shade over the back corner where our fold-out community tables sat groaning by noon every year. Kids darted like sparrows. Someone tested a microphone and produced the kind of squeal that makes everyone look up. Behind the raffle table, rubber ducks bobbed in a galvanized tub. Harbor Glen in a nutshell, quaint and slightly ridiculous. At the utilities booth, I recognized the banner from the meeting photo. Waterwise Harbor Glen in big friendly letters. A binder with sample bills. A model of a meter someone had clearly built with pride. And behind it, two men in matching polos. Kyle and a guy with a farmer tan and a sunburned nose. Kyle saw Dana first. A flicker of recognition moved across his face and tried to resolve into a smile. It didn't quite make it. He clocked me at her side and tucked his hands under the table like a kid choosing to sit on them to avoid touching a cookie tray. We are early, I said, stopping a few feet away. Wanted a good seat for the raffle. Always goes fast, the sunburned guy said cheerfully, sticking out a hand. Ron. I shook it. Solid grip. My eyes stayed on Kyle. Beautiful day, Kyle said finally. His voice was ordinary. Neighborly. If we were two different men, we could have talked about grid repairs and the price of mulch. Let's keep it that way, I said. We won't be here long. Ron looked between us, slow comprehension dawning. He suddenly discovered the urgent need to adjust a stack of pamphlets. People know when they should exit a conversation. He eased himself out of the rectangle of tension and went to ask the sound guy about extension cords. I got your message, Kyle said to Dana, keeping his chin low. Understood. This is between you and me, I said quietly, leaning just enough that only he would hear. But make no mistake, it touches a whole lot more if you cross a single line today. He nodded. Not feigned. Real. I won't, he said. I didn't come to. Don't finish that sentence, I said. You came to work a booth. So work the booth. He glanced at Dana. She didn't meet his eyes. I watched him take that in and file it. Men like him live by filing systems. Boxes for tools. Boxes for choices. We walked away. Dana exhaled like she'd been holding air since Wednesday. We set our chairs under the maples and watched a three-legged race start lopsided and end with two teenagers laughing in a heap of dust. A few people waved. Small-town questions whirred around us like bees. Where have you been? Did you bring the salsa this year? How's your boy out west? I smiled and gave the same answers I've given for a decade. Routine. Polite. Beige. Pattern interrupt, and then a shadow fell across our blanket, and a voice I didn't expect said my name. Mark? I looked up. Patrice from the clinic, sharp eyes, practical bun, stood there with a paper plate of watermelon and a look like she'd been holding a secret in her mouth too long and it had started to burn. Can I talk to you a minute? She asked, eyes flicking to Dana then back to me. Dana stiffened. Patrice, not now, she said, too quick. We should, Patrice said gently, ignoring her. It won't take long. We stepped a few paces away, just far enough that the grills and the cotton candy machine made good cover noise. I'm not taking sides, Patrice said. I care about both of you. But I saw enough to know something was off. And, she hesitated. It isn't my business unless it touches the clinic. Does it? I asked. She took a breath. He came by after hours one night with a stack of boxes. I was there because of a supply delivery that ran late. I saw them in the hallway by the closet. It wasn't graphic. But it wasn't colleagues. I left before they saw me because I didn't want to embarrass anyone. The next morning I told Dana to be careful with appearances. She brushed me off. My jaw worked before sound did. Thank you, I said finally. For telling me now. I didn't know if I should, she said. People say let marriages stay inside their walls. But the clinic is also my wall. You did the right thing, I said. She squeezed my forearm once, the way a sister might, and walked back toward the dessert table, shoulders squared. I watched Dana watching us, her face tight in that way that says she knows exactly which part of the story just got a witness. Curiosity loop payoff, new question. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. 5 words lit the screen. We should talk. Man to man. I didn't need to ask who. I could feel it, like a pressure drop before a storm. I held the phone so Dana couldn't see it and let the message sit there, humming with its own suggestion of control. Is it him? Dana asked, reading my silence. Yes, I said. What did he say? That he wants to talk, I said. Man to man. She looked toward the booth where Kyle now stood with a kid asking about the meter model. He was nodding, explaining cubic this and gallon that, engaged in the simple virtue of showing a thing to a curious person. It made my skin itch to see him performing neighborliness in the park where my kids had learned to pedal without training wheels. What are you going to do? She asked. I folded the chair slowly just to have something to do with my hands. Across the grass, the raffle MC tapped the microphone and cleared his throat. The rubber ducks in the tub bumped softly against each other like little yellow secrets. I'm going to give him one sentence, I said. And I'm going to give you what comes after. What sentence? She whispered. You'll hear it, I said. I tucked the phone into my pocket without replying to Kyle. If he wanted to talk, he could look at me in daylight. We made our way back toward the booth, past a toddler holding a snow cone like a trophy, past Mrs. Lowry who lifted her deviled eggs in salute, past a row of coolers that all looked the same until you noticed the duct tape names. The closer we got, the more I felt that calm settle in, the one I learned behind a catcher's mask, when the pitch you call decides the inning. Kyle turned as we approached. Ron saw us and found another extension cord emergency. Kyle's mouth moved in a practiced greeting. He stopped when he saw my eyes. Mark, he said, voice very small now that it wasn't cushioned by text bubbles. I stepped into the shade of the tent so the maples framed us like a picture. Here's the sentence, I said. And I opened my mouth. Here's the sentence I gave him. You will never contact my wife again, and before sunset you'll send a brief no-contact note to your supervisor confirming that boundary. I didn't raise my voice. The maples did the dramatics, shifting shadows across the booth, turning the grass into little continents of light and dark. Kyle swallowed. I respect that. Say it, I said. I won't contact her again, he replied, eyes on mine. No defiance. No swagger. Just a man who suddenly realized the booth table between us wasn't protection. Say her name. He flinched, then, Dana. I won't contact Dana again. Ron, the sunburned co-worker, hovered a few feet away, fiddling with a power strip that didn't need fiddling. I looked at him. Ron, I said evenly, would you witness that? Just heard with your ears. Ron nodded, more solemn than I expected. He said it, he murmured. I heard. Good, I said. Then work the booth. It's a nice day. We stepped back into the sunlight. I could feel Dana at my shoulder, small in posture if not in height. For a breath, sympathy tugged, a memory of her tucked up on our porch with a blanket, laughing at a dumb joke I hadn't even finished. Then the supply closet image Patrice had given me flickered, and the tug cut off clean. Mrs. Lowry drifted by with a paper plate of deviled eggs like a peace envoy. Look at you two, she sang, oblivious. Marina, she stopped herself. Mark. You bring that famous marinade this year? Next time, I said, managing a smile. Trying a new recipe on Life Today. She laughed without understanding and floated off. I could have left it there. But the message in my pocket, we should talk. Man to man. Needed daylight, too. Bench, I said to Dana, nodding toward the shade by the cotton candy cart. Sit where you can see me. Don't move. If anyone asks, tell them I'm discussing water pressure. She sat like she was obeying a fire drill. I walked back to the booth. 2 minutes, I said to Kyle, low enough for only him. Man to man, since you asked. He set the clipboard down like it had become heavy. I didn't come here to push a line, he said. I came because my schedule said park duty. Spare me the calendar, I said. I have calendars. I leaned on the table edge, palms flat. Calm hands. You going to hear this once, I'm not interested in your version of romance. I'm not here to throw a scene. I'm here to make sure you understand the shape of my life. He lifted his hands. I get it. It wasn't supposed to be. Stop. Don't sell me the accidental thing speech, I said. She's my wife. We are not separated. We weren't separated. Whatever she told you to rationalize this, rewrite it now to the truth. He looked over my shoulder at the maples, then back at me. Something shifted in his face, relief that the lie could drop, or resignation that it had to. She said you two had moved to separate rooms months ago, he admitted. She said the marriage was coasting. She said you were more interested in budgets than in her. I let that sit, because that was the blade, right there, thin, almost polite, but cutting. We moved rooms 2 nights ago, I said. When I found the messages. He nodded once, a flinch turned into a gesture. Then I was wrong to believe her, he said. I shouldn't have. I wanted to think it was less ugly. Polarity flip. For a breath I saw him not as the antagonist but as a foolish man who built a story he could live inside. It didn't make the damage smaller. It just made it human. Then the napkin with KM on it, his initials or coincidence, it didn't matter, flashed in my head, and I tightened the line. No more contact, I repeated. No hallway colliding. No parking lot waves. Not at the clinic. Not at the advisory meetings. Nothing. You work around each other's existence like strangers. If you cross this line, I take the daylight I've got and hand it to your office and hers. I hear you, he said, voice small. I'll send my supervisor an email after my shift. Copy Dana's clinic director, I said. He hesitated. Do I have to? I didn't blink. Yes. He nodded, breaking eye contact to stare at the meter model like it could teach him how to measure his own choices. What about today? He asked. Do I leave the booth? You work your shift, I said. And you act like a man who learned something late, not a boy who got caught. He swallowed again. Understood. Last thing, I added. Don't ever message me. Don't ever explain. If you feel the need to be noble, use your company's compliance portal. That way the record lives where it belongs. He gave a humorless half-smile. You've thought about this. I've been making lists since I was 12, I said. It's how I catch fastballs. I stepped back and let the sun reset the scene to ordinary. Kids hollered. Someone at the grill swung a spatula like a conductor. Normal cranked itself back up like a generator after an outage. Dana sat on the bench with her hands threaded like rope. When I reached her, she stood. What did you tell him? She asked. What needed to be said, I answered, then decided she deserved the whole and no contact. Supervisor informed. No gray zones. He agreed. She exhaled shakily. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said. You put us here. I'm just drawing the exits. We didn't get to sit with that. Patrice approached, purposeful but soft. She kept her voice down. I can put a note in our after-hours log, she said, eyes on me, not Dana. Simple. Factual. Non-work contact observed with outside vendor after close. No adjectives. Dana's face went taut. Patrice. I'm not punishing you, Patrice said gently. I'm protecting the clinic. It's what I'm paid to do. And I'm protecting you from rumors by owning the facts. I respected her even more right then. Do it, I said. Thank you. Dana stared at the grass, little diamonds of sun dancing between blades. I guess I deserve that. Deserve has nothing to do with it, Patrice said. Steady does. Then she walked away, and I watched the invisible file open somewhere with a small, clean click. Curiosity loop. If you're wondering whether humiliation tempts a man in a moment like this, of course it does. A part of me wanted to stand on the picnic table and announce the truth like a raffle prize. But Gabe's words kept my anger between the curbs, accountability or spectacle. The raffle started. Our last name didn't get called. I was grateful. Dana clapped at the right times and smiled at a toddler who tried to eat a ticket. Her face held, but I could see the hairline cracks a person gets when their story stops fitting their life. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I ignored it. 2 minutes later, a voicemail icon appeared. I tapped my earpiece and turned away, facing the parking lot. A man's voice. Not Kyle's. Flat, Midwest vowels. Mr. Ellison. This is Decker with Regional Utilities. Kyle Mercer asked me to call you. He wanted me to know there's a situation and that he has declared no contact going forward. If you need to discuss anything else, you can reach our office Monday. We take conflicts seriously. It was unexpected. Kyle hadn't waited. He'd flipped the switch himself. Accountability without me forcing. A better move than I'd promised him he'd make. I replayed the message once, then pocketed the phone and walked back. Dana read my face like a book she didn't want spoiled. He called his boss, I said. Had them call me. Her shoulders dipped a fraction. Maybe he's not. Don't do that, I said, too quickly. We're not grading him on a curve. We are grading ourselves. She nodded. You right. We survived the rest of the afternoon. Survived is the word. We smiled at the right people and stood under the right amount of shade. When it was done, we folded our chairs and walked home on legs that felt like borrowed furniture. On the kitchen counter, the 2 draft letters waited in their envelopes, unsent. I slid them to the side and set down the thumb drive. Dana set her keys on the cork coaster I use for tea, like she wanted to mark that she'd come home and not run. I need to know something, I said, not sitting. Did you ever take him into a space that's ours? A porch. A garage. Anywhere that smells like us. No, she said. Too fast. Then slower, I kept that line. I swear. Good, I said. That's the only line you kept. She took that without flinching. Maybe because there wasn't anything left to flinch with. The house exhaled into the quiet. The dog snored, oblivious. A neighbor's sprinkler ticked, metallic and mindless. I could feel the next phase settling, the ugly, practical part, money, schedules, facts that live in bank apps and file folders instead of hearts. Pattern interrupt, and my phone lit up with a bank alert, a security notice, a password reset requested for your joint savings. If this wasn't you, tap here. I looked at Dana. Did you try to reset our savings password? Her eyes widened. No. A second ping, a new recipient added in Dana Ellison's mobile banking. My chest tightened. I turned the screen so she could see the notification header without the name. Who did you add? She shook her head fast. I didn't add anyone. I haven't touched my banking app today. Then my phone buzzed with a third chime, this time a text from our son out west, blissfully unrelated, a surprise. Flying in next weekend. Thought I'd bring the dog and crash. Don't tell Mom. A happy bomb dropped in the middle of an already crowded field. I stared at the 2 messages, the cold banking pings and the warm note from my kid, and felt the ground tilt. 2 versions of my life were asking for my attention at once. I thought I knew the worst, I said quietly. I didn't. Because while I was deciding whether to call the bank fraud line or text our son back with a lie about a work trip, Dana's phone buzzed on the counter. A number I didn't recognize. She looked at it, tried to silence it, then watched it roll to voicemail. We both listened as her phone announced, a new voicemail from Blocked. She pressed play. A woman's voice. Calm. Certain. Dana, it's Lila from the clinic board. We need to reschedule tomorrow's budget review, and one more thing, I'd like to talk about the North Ridge workshop in January. Call me back. Dana went pale. Not embarrassed pale. History pale. What's North Ridge? I asked, my voice a notch lower than before. She didn't answer. She reached for the counter to steady herself. The cicadas outside shifted key like the trees had tuned themselves to a different song. Dana, I said, because now I needed this like oxygen, what is North Ridge? She opened her mouth. Dana, I asked again, steady, what is North Ridge? She stared at the backsplash like it might feed her an answer. Then she exhaled. It's a winter leadership workshop, she said. Clinic schedulers go every other year. I registered last week. I added a guest. Listed him as a community partner because of the advisory work. The deposit hit today. My jaw set. From our joint savings? She nodded, tiny. $200 to hold the room. It was refundable. And the password reset? I asked. Her throat moved. I tried to change my mobile banking this morning. I panicked. I didn't finish. I shouldn't have tried. There it was. Not a glitch. A choice. I kept my voice even. Here are the rules. You cancel Northridge. In writing. Now. You copy Lila from the board. You refund the deposit to the same account it came from. She started to speak. I lifted a hand. This isn't a negotiation, I said. This is a boundary. She nodded and reached for her phone with hands that finally shook. Curiosity loop, before she could type, I called the bank. Speaker on. A calm woman named Maris answered. I verified, reset, locked, and added a fresh two-factor that pinged my number, not just hers. I asked for a freeze on adding new recipients without both approvals. I asked for alerts on withdrawals over $50. I took notes while the dog snored under the table like he was bored by our ruin. When I hung up, Dana had the Northridge registration open. It was all there in grayscale, dates in January, a block rate for rooms, a line that read attendee plus community partner, civic liaison, and a second line that made the room tilt, a guest name, A.K. Mercer. She didn't look at me. She just hit cancel. The page asked for a reason. She typed, circumstances changed. Attendee will not participate. A spinny wheel. A green check. Deposit refunded within 3 to 5 business days. Screenshot it, I said. She did. Now email Lila, I added. Subject line, in Northridge, cancellation confirmed. 2 sentences. I've cancelled my registration and any partner listing. Please consider the matter closed on the clinic's end. Attach the screenshot. Copy me. Dana typed. Her shoulders were high and tight like a bad posture class. She read it aloud before hitting send. I nodded. The whoosh sounded like a tiny door closing. Now call Lila, I said. Speaker. Dana pressed the contact. It rang twice. Hi, it's Lila, came the voice from the voicemail, now live. Is this about budget or about Northridge? Both, Dana said. I cancelled Northridge. I've emailed you proof. A pause. Understood, Lila said. Thank you for moving quickly. For the record, Northridge is legitimate, but a utilities tech doesn't fit our partner category. We would have denied the guest anyway. Dana's eyes flinched shut. I know, she said softly. Lila's tone was measured. We'll still keep an internal note, Dana. Clean. No adjectives. Just, steady. She paused. Mark, if you're there, I'm not prying. I'm protecting the clinic and the community program. That's my lane. I appreciate lanes, I said. Thanks, Lila. We ended the call. For a long minute, neither of us moved. Outside, a mower droned a few houses over. The ceiling fan made it small, untrue tick and kept going like it didn't care which life it was slicing the air for. I need to schedule the lawyer, I said into the quiet. Monday morning. Okay, she whispered. I'm telling you what I told myself the night I saw the messages, I added. If anything shifts in your story, I take this to HR at the clinic and the utilities office. Northridge, the deposit, the closet, the lot, it all lives in daylight. She nodded without argument. I hear you. Pattern interrupt, and my phone buzzed again. Our daughter this time. Dad, random question, I'm thinking about popping home next weekend. Don't tell Mom. Want to surprise her. I stared at the text. The joy of it. The ache of it. 2 kids wanting to be near us. 1 house not safe for surprises. I typed back, we'd love to see you. Surprise might be tricky, house is mid-repair. Let's FaceTime tonight? A white lie to buy time. A lie I hated. But I wasn't going to hand her a half-truth and call it love. I pocketed the phone and turned to the ledger. If the heart is a bad accountant, the books still deserve to be balanced. Here's what we're doing, I said. Tonight we list every account. Joint. Individual. Credit lines. Retirement. We set spending rules. We remove any auto transfers to your separate account until we've met with counsel. We put the house title file on the table and talk through outcomes like adults. She swallowed. Okay. And Dana, I added, I want you to send Carl a final message. One sentence. I've cancelled the January workshop and any connection between us. Do not contact me again in any context. Then block him everywhere. I'll watch you do it. Tremor in her hand. I already told him no contact. This isn't for him, I said. It's for me. She typed. She sent. She blocked. She set the phone down like it burned. We made the list. Accounts spread across the table like little islands. Checking with a balanced, boring number. Savings with more than I'd like to risk. Dana's retirement from the clinic's modest plan. My IRA. A small college fund we keep open as a symbolic thing, even though tuition days are over. I wrote in neat block letters. Dates. Balances. Notes. Dana watched my handwriting like a person memorizing a map they might not be allowed to use later. I called Gabe, the not counselor who talks like one. Hypothetical, I said. If a man wanted to separate finances without throwing gas on coals, what would he do? Protect the essentials, he said. Lock down savings and credit to prevent surprise. Leave a small shared checking for day-to-day with a weekly cap. Put it in writing so it's not a trap, it's a boundary. And call the lawyer Monday. Copy, I said. Gabe hesitated. Mark? Yeah. Remember to eat, he said. People forget food when they're carrying a piano. I laughed once in spite of myself. We'll order pizza. Get two, he said. One for now, one for when sleep won't come. We didn't order pizza. We made grilled cheese like broke newlyweds because the act of flipping something warm and simple felt like a vote for being human. Curiosity loop payoff, partial after dinner, the utilities number lit my screen again. Not a call. An email. Subject, a contact boundaries, recorded. Inside, 3 lines from someone named Decker confirming that Carl had filed a no-contact statement and that a note now lived in his HR file limiting non-essential interactions with clinic staff. Dry. Institutional. Perfect. I forwarded it to myself and printed a copy for the manila folder labeled House, September. Then I printed the North Ridge cancellation confirmation and put it behind it. Then I placed both under the thumb drive like layers in a cake I didn't want but intended to slice cleanly later. Mark? Dana said, voice small. I looked up. Thank you for not exploding today, she said. At the park. With the bank. With Lila. I saw a version of this where you made me tiny in front of everyone. You didn't. I considered that. I'm not here to make you small, I said. I'm here to make the truth big enough to stand on. She closed her eyes, a slow blink. I deserve whatever path you choose. Maybe, I said. But I'm still the one who has to walk it. The house stretched into evening. We did the domestic choreography because muscle memory is strong. She loaded the dishwasher. I took out the trash. I filled the dog's water. The small things kept a hand at the back of a life that wanted to fall forward too fast. Later, I went to the spare room doorway. I need one more thing tonight, I said. Your full phone backup to my drive. We'll make a copy. Not to snoop. To stop the story from shifting because a device died. She hesitated, then nodded. We plugged in cables and watched the progress bar inch. Two people who used to watch movies on that old tablet now watching a percent climb like a sunrise. Pattern interrupt, the porch light flicked on. Automatic. Motion sensor catching a shadow. I stepped to the window. A car I didn't recognize idled by the curb. Not the utilities pickup. A small gray sedan. Lights off, engine low. Sitting. I felt my pulse bump once. Twice. I reached for my phone and hit record on the video without thinking, keeping it down by my side. The car idled another 10 seconds, then rolled off slow, no plate visible from the angle. Could be a neighbor's new teen driver. Could be a DoorDash in the wrong spot. Could be nothing. See something? Dana asked from the hall, reading my shoulders. Probably nothing, I said. But we lock the doors tonight. We finished the backup. I ejected the drive. I dated the label. I put it with the folder. I stood there for a second with my hand on it like a prayer over bread. My phone buzzed. A son again, unable to keep a secret. Actually, changed plans. I land Friday night. Thought I'd spend extra days. Don't tell Mom. Love you. A laugh left me, raw. Timing is a comedian with bad manners. I'll make up the guest room, Dana said quietly, hearing the tone even if she didn't know the words. He always likes the blue quilt. The blue quilt. The one her mother made. The one we brought home in a box after the funeral, dry cleaner plastic crinkling like a bad joke. I pictured my son's dog tearing into that guest room with pure, dumb joy. I pictured my son's eyes reading the room like he reads a picture, one glance, full story. We'll host, I said. We'll be kind. We won't lie. But we won't dump a bucket on his head the second he steps in the door. Dana nodded. I'll sleep at Patrice's those days, she said. I'll tell her I need space. I won't make you perform marriage for the kids. That was the first gift she'd offered that wasn't words. Text Patrice now, I said. Ask if she can spare a couch. If not, we'll find you a hotel. Separate cards. She typed. She says yes, Dana said a minute later, relief loosening her shoulders. She says to bring my own coffee because her machine is temperamental. Of course it is, I said. Patrice would have a temperamental machine. It makes her feel alive. Dana smiled, small and real, then wiped it quick like it didn't belong. We turned off lights. I lay in our bed and listened to the fan tick and counted heartbeats because numbers were still my friends. Around midnight, a text came in from a number I didn't know. A single line. Budget review moved to Sunday 7 p.m. boardroom. Attendance required. No name. Just a meeting link. Lila's style, though, efficient. Official. The clinic wasn't wasting time. I typed back, received. Dana will attend. Then, on second thought, I will accompany as spouse. Curiosity loop payoff, new stakes. The reply came fast. Spouse attendance permitted. Be advised, Utilities HR will join by phone. Utilities. HR. A joint conversation. All the institutions I'd kept at bay by being measured were walking up our front steps with clipboards. This was bigger than a neighborhood cookout now. Bigger than a park bench sentence. This was the part where the community asks you who you are when it counts. Their lane. My lane. A truth in the middle like a table no one could walk around without seeing. I stood at the window again and looked at our quiet street. Porches slept. Sprinklers timed themselves. Somewhere a TV glowed blue through curtains. Normal was everywhere. In here, we were building a new version brick by careful brick. Mark? Dana said from the spare room, voice small in the dark. Yeah. Thank you for not letting me shrink this, she whispered. I hate it. But I think I needed it. I didn't answer. I couldn't tell if her words were a new truth or an old reflex. Polarity flips are tricky at midnight. Instead, I set the alarm for morning and slid the thumb drive under my watch on the nightstand. Calm hands. Clear steps. One more night inside a house that was becoming paperwork. Sunday would bring a boardroom. And a choice with my lawyer's name on it. The boardroom smelled like burnt coffee and dry erase markers. Sunday night at 7, the hour when decisions feel heavier than they should. Fluorescents hummed. A projector fan whirred. Name placards faced alongside of the table like little shields, Elila at the head, Patrice 2 seats down, 2 other board members I only knew by nod. On the speakerphone, a digital voice announced, Regional Utilities, Decker and Legal on the line. Dana sat beside me, small and upright, hands laced so tight her knuckles paled. I set my folder and the thumb drive down like a tradesman laying out tools. Calm hands. No theatrics. Lila opened. Purpose tonight is narrow, she said, voice even. To record boundaries, review conduct, and protect the clinic and community program. We are not assigning morals. We are assigning lanes. I appreciated lanes. Patrice gave facts. Clean. No adjectives. After hours presence by an outside vendor, she said. Observed non-collegial contact in a staff hallway. Recorded in the after-hours log. No patient involved. No access to records compromised. Lila looked at Decker's speaker. Utilities? Decker's voice came through steady. Kyle Mercer filed a no-contact with Ms. Ellison Friday afternoon. We've restricted his community interface duties, effective immediately. He's reassigned to meter inspection outside Harbor Glen. Note placed in his personnel file. He'll complete boundary training. We are reviewing our vendor interaction guidelines with the city. It was administrative, almost boring. That's how accountability should sound when it's real. Lila turned to Dana. Do you acknowledge the after-hours contact and the non-work meetings? Dana didn't look at me. Yes, she said clearly. I do. Lila nodded once. You placed on 2 weeks paid administrative leave starting tomorrow. On return, you will be removed from community liaison tasks for the quarter and complete ethics training. You'll work under Patrice's direct oversight for scheduling changes. We'll update the policy documents by Friday. Dana's throat moved. Understood. Lila looked at me then. Mr. Ellison, you asked to attend. Do you wish to file anything further? 2 items, I said, calm. First, acknowledgement that the January workshop registration with a non-eligible community partner has been cancelled and refunded to our joint account. I slid the printout. Second, that the utilities reassignment and clinic boundaries are filed where future managers can find them. Decker spoke. Both noted. Lila's pen clicked once. Added. I knew this wasn't a courtroom. It felt like something better, dry daylight. The kind that doesn't need to shout to be seen. Patrice risked a small look at me. Gratitude lived there. Not for the pain. For the way we were holding the edges. Lila closed the notebook. Then we are adjourned. Thank you all for being plain. Chairs scuffed. The projector sighed as it shut down. Dana and I walked out into a Sunday evening that smelled like cut grass and cooling asphalt. We stopped by the flagstone planters where somebody had coaxed petunias into a semblance of cheer. She spoke first. I know what this cost you, she said, voice careful. You didn't torch me. You could have. I didn't torch the clinic, I corrected gently. Your own story. She absorbed that like a person who's used to gentle corrections and still hates them. Can we try? She asked then, no preface. Counseling. Space. A plan that isn't the end. There it was. The fork. No dramatic thunder. Just a question in the soft part of a Sunday. I can sit in a counselor's office, I said. But not as your husband. I don't have that version left. Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. She nodded once, slow, like a person hearing their own diagnosis out loud after suspecting it for a long time. Then I'll pack for Patrice's tonight, she said. I'll be out before the kids visit. Thank you, I said. That's the first decision today that didn't cost someone else. We drove home in parallel silence. The house glowed warm in the dusk, oblivious. Dana went to the spare room and started folding a life into a canvas duffel. I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a list for Monday, the way a man writes directions for someone who will drive past the landmarks alone. 9 a.m., attorney consult, Mills and Carter. Freeze non-essential cards. Weekly cap on shared checking, $200. Email utilities HR to request written confirmation of reassignment, received verbal. Email clinic board for policy update copy once ratified. Tell kids, a full truth, no names, no gore. House occupancy clause, temporary. Car insurance split. Health insurance, continue until decree. Pet plan, Sundays with me, weekdays with me. Dog didn't sin. I slept 3 hours and dreamed about a baseball mask and a bank app at the same time. Both fit my face badly. Monday at 9:01, I shook hands with attorney Rhea Mills in an office that smelled like lemon cleaner and printed paper. She had a grip like a captain and an expression like a person who has walked 100 men to the edge and back. Give me the clean version, she said. I did. She listened without decoration, then sketched a rectangle on a legal pad. Inside here, she said, tapping the box, are the urgent decisions, safety, housing, money, kids. Everything else lives in a longer story. We wrote. She suggested. I accepted or adjusted. The plan clicked into place like well-made drawers. Separation agreement, 90 days I hold temporary occupancy of the house. She moves to a listed address, Patrice's. Finances, savings locked, in both signatures required for transfers. Shared checking capped with automatic alert at the cap. Separate cards for personal expenses. Discovery, phone records and statements for the past 6 months exchanged within 10 days. Conduct, a mutual no contact with third parties about details beyond what our kids need to know. No public posts. Contact with AP, a prohibited, a violation triggers immediate notification to both employers, pre-agreed. Kids, a shared statement, scripted, delivered together by video tonight. Dog, stays with me, occasional visits when she's at Patrice's and I'm home. Rewrote pet plan with a tiny smile. Do you want me to file petition today, or let the separation run and decide at the end? Rhea asked. File, I said. Calm hands. I built my life on clarity. I'm not changing the lumber now. She nodded once. It will be served midweek. I thanked her, paid the retainer from my individual account, and left with a manila envelope that weighed exactly what I expected. At home, Dana's car was gone. The spare room sat neat with the kind of emptiness you can smell, linen and distance. On the counter, she'd left her clinic badge and a house key. The badge would go back. The key would not. At 5, we called the kids together, FaceTime, screens glowing like small moons. Our son's dog shoved into the frame, our daughter wore a sweatshirt too big for her, sleeves swallowing her hands. I'm going to say this in the simplest way, I began. Adults made choices that broke our marriage. We are separating, and I've filed for divorce. We love you both the same as yesterday. We will not ask you to pick sides. You can be mad at us in whatever order you need. They went still the way grown kids do when childhood shifts under their feet again. Our daughter cried quietly, hand on her mouth. Our son blinked hard and stared at something off screen like he could anchor his eyes to a cupboard. Is it because you two were unhappy? He asked finally. We let routine run the house, I said. And we didn't talk about the hard parts until one of us chose the wrong fix. That's all I'll say about details. You don't need the extras to love both your parents. They nodded. They said they loved us. They meant it. We meant it back. When the call ended, the house felt bigger and smaller at once. Monday night, Lila emailed the new policy. Dry as a desert, and no personal meetings after hours with outside partners. Violations trigger review. Patrice attached her after-hours log entry to the file with a tidy timestamp. Decker followed with a formal letter, Ekal reassigned out of community interface for a year, boundary training completed, further breach triggers disciplinary escalation. No adjectives anywhere. Perfect. Revenge, it turns out, can come dressed like procedure. I grilled chicken for one on the back deck. The marinade tasted the same. That felt like a betrayal and a mercy. I ate with a napkin tucked under the plate because I didn't trust my hands not to fidget. At 8:40, the doorbell rang. Dana stood on the porch with a small box. The street behind her looked like a photograph of quiet. I forgot my charger, she said. I fetched it. When I came back, I stayed on my side of the threshold. She didn't try to cross. Good. Progress. I met with HR today, she said. They put the notes in my file. I start the ethics course next week. Okay, I said. She held the box like a peace offering. If you need anything labeled before I come by Thursday to get the rest, text me. I won't linger. Thank you, I said. She nodded. I'll be at Patrice's. She makes strange coffee. I heard, I said. We stood there for a second like people in line at a DMV. Then she looked at the maple trees we planted when the kids were small. I did love our life, she said softly. Even when I was ungrateful enough to tell myself I didn't. I loved it too, I said. That's why I won't live a cheaper version of it now. Something in her posture accepted that. She left. The porch light clicked off behind her like punctuation. Wednesday afternoon, a process server left an envelope with her name and the county seal on it at Patrice's door. Clean. Legal. No drama. I didn't feel triumph. I felt exactly what I expected, a click, like a lock engaging. The sound of a boundary holding. Utilities sent a final note, Mr. Ellison, per your request, the matter is now closed in our system barring future contact. We regret the overlap with your family's life. Again, dry. Again, right. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the ledger and wrote a new page header, October, 1 income, 1 house. Under it, I listed numbers that looked smaller and truer. I set a cap for groceries that made me think harder before throwing novelty snacks into the cart. I scheduled a standing call with Gabe on Thursdays so the quiet wouldn't spook me. I put the dog's vet appointment on the calendar and planned to take my son to breakfast when his flight landed, just us, so the two of us could be men in a booth with pancakes and a new shape to our family that didn't need whispering. Then I took the wedding photo from the hallway wall and set it on the hall table instead of the nail. Not a bonfire. Just a relocation. A truth on a different surface. What I learned, so I don't forget. Daylight is a tool. Quiet, documented, boring daylight beats shouting in the dark. Policies. Emails. HR notes. They build a wall you don't have to hold up with your own arms. Money tells on you. Alerts, caps, two-factor. Put the numbers on your side before feelings get loud. Boundaries beat speeches. One sentence at a park booth changed more than an hour of theatrical anger ever could. Community matters. Lila, Patrice, Decca, Gabe, steady people in their lanes can keep you from driving off the edge. Let them. Love without self-respect is a costume. I can feel compassion for the woman I married and still refuse to wear a smaller version of myself to keep a photo on a wall. Calm hands catch more than fast ones. You don't need to swing. You need to see the ball and hold the glove still. I didn't win anything. That's not what this was. I built something. A floor I could stand on. A house that could hold just me for a while without echoing. And when the clerk stamped the petition at 9:04 a.m., it didn't sound like an ending so much as a beginning written in ink. The maples out front held their leaves in the late light. I let the dog out. I pulled the door closed behind us.